This is Nasha Kasha, Ukrainian Almanac, 28 minutes of stories about Ukrainian life. Nasha Kasha is heard on 14 campus and community radio stations from Newfoundland to British Columbia. I'm your reporter Stefan Andrusiak. Vitayu vas. Welcome. This is episode 154. In May, the City of London, Ontario designates 1 week for displays, forums, alert system testing, and fire station tours. All of these to focus public attention on emergency preparedness. From mass casualty accidents, terrorism, natural disasters, chemical spills, train derailments, wildfires, floods, London and cities across North America plan and drill, assess and ready for the anticipated as well as for the unforeseen. Today, Nasha Kasha will meet one London firefighter who spends his off time imparting his know-how to colleagues and to civilians in far-flung parts of the world, including Ukraine. And will travel to Toronto to tour and to learn about two charities in the forefront of international disaster aid. They're called Global Medic and Global Fire. Here's a song about smoke. It's by Vremya and Steklo. It's called Dim.
Моя любов чорна біль, і гірка, наче токсичний полин. Серце моє поринь, подивись, мій реактор горить.
Моя любов білий дим, ставлю я тіло у віброрежим. Так закортіло мені бути з ним, але на танцполі лише тільки дим. Заховай мене дим, я хотіла танцювати тільки з ним, з ним, з ним. Чому моя вина, що лишилася одна, танцювати одна. Не люблю тебе дим, я хотіла танцювати тільки з ним, з ним, з ним. Чому в голові туман, кохання як дим, солодкий дурман. Тільки дим,
Hi there, my name is Patrick Bradley. I'm a firefighter here in the City of London, and I'm also team lead with a nonprofit organization called Global Fire.
Did you grow up here in London, Ontario?
Born and raised in Ottawa, Ontario, a third of 4 boys. I came here after I retired from the military. To be quite honest, my military career was my focus. I originally wanted to go to England and join the Royal Marines. I fell in love and stayed here instead, so I went to college. My mother's from England. Growing up, my grandfather, hearing his stories of being in the war. My other grandfather was also in the Royal Canadian Air Force. I joined cadets when I was 13.
Now, you said for love. Can you talk about that?
Well, just like any other 17-year-old, you think that you've fallen in love, and that one person will be the reason that you'll be there forever. And I don't regret my decision. Things happen for a reason, and I'm quite comfortable with it. When I was a military fireman, I was stationed at the Canadian Forces Base Trenton in Trenton, Ontario. I retired as a corporal. I had always perceived myself as a lifer in the military. Some things came about that made me decide that it was time for something different, something new. And upon my release from the military, I was fortunate enough to be hired by the City of London.
It's really tough to become a firefighter these days.
It's not for everybody, that's for sure. It's a big selection process. As I recall, for my class, we had 7 in my class, and there was 3,000 applicants. 2008. For the first couple of years of my career, I was all over the city. You'd get a call in the morning, and they'd tell you to go to Station 13 or Station 2 or Station 11, and you just get bounced around. Eventually, because I'm a hazmat technician and I'm on the hazmat team, I was able to get a spot downtown on Engine 1, and I was there for a couple of years, and then I was on Truck 2 for a couple more, but I spent the bulk of my career on Coburn Street.
So a city like London, hazmat, hazardous materials, correct? And what are the kinds of situations you deal with?
People don't realize that we have 2 major rail lines, one of which is transporting massive amounts of hazardous materials. And then you have the 401, which is the largest transporter of hazardous materials in North America, going through the city also. From those large-scale scenarios to just everyday incidents like meth labs, people who may make homemade explosives, potential for terrorist events that we constantly have to keep an eye on. Also, Labatt has large refrigeration, so they would have ammonia. You have all the ice rinks; they have ammonia also.
Now, tell me about Global Fire. How did you get involved?
After I left the military and once I was in the fire service, I was really looking for something. I wanted to get involved in something. I wanted to travel, but I wanted to travel with a purpose. I ran into a girl who was actually part of our sister charity, which is Global Medic. She told me about some of her adventures, and she told me about Global Fire. She said, hey, you might be interested in Global Fire, because it was just starting up at that time. This was in 2011. And she gave me the name of the head of Global Fire, Craig Lester, who's actually an Afghanistan veteran. He had a deployment that was going to Nicaragua in a month's time. And I took the plunge and never looked back.
So can you go up to your supervisor at the fire department and say, hey, I'd like to go to Nicaragua. Give me, a month?
The City of London and the London Fire Department have been really great about allowing me to move my vacation time. It's time that I'd be using for something else. We are also allowed to get trades for firefighters to cover my shift. I'll pay them back later on. They allow me to do it because it's for a good cause.
What was going on in Nicaragua?
One of the great things about being in Canada and being a first world nation is that the safety standards that we have for equipment means we have a large turnover rate. So bunker gear, maximum amount of time for bunker gear is 10 years. Trucks can only be on the road for so long, that type of thing. A lot of this equipment, once it's decommissioned, has no value. Essentially, it gets auctioned off for pennies. There's nothing else you can do with it. You can't sell it. You can't wear it again. So we take this equipment, raise funds through different means, and take it down to the firefighters and provide training to them. So for instance, a couple years ago, the single largest donation of firefighting equipment in Canadian firefighting history was when the City of London donated almost 400 sets of self-contained breathing apparatus. This equipment is a huge advantage to firefighters in the developing world, because if you could imagine trying to go and fight a structure fire or try and go and save somebody in a building and you have no breathing apparatus, right? You're doing it like we were doing it 60 years ago with no air packs. So going down there and being able to teach them how to use that equipment, how to advance further into a fire, that keeps them safe, and it produces a higher level of survivability for victims and the community they're trying to serve. After Nicaragua, I went to Cambodia, to the area of Siem Reap. Very densely packed, I would say 100,000 people. They had a local international airport. So they had a full-time professional firefighting staff, well-paid, well-trained, well-equipped, that didn't have any experience with structural firefighting. And then they had a fire police force in the city of Siem Reap that didn't have much equipment, not much training, and we worked out a mutual aid agreement between the two of them and trained both of them. After Cambodia was Guatemala. We were in Retalhuleu in that area. That was a capacity building operation also. In 2013, myself and another London firefighter volunteered to do training of firefighters on the Isle of Dominica. It's in the Caribbean. Up until we got there, they had no shore-based water rescue capability. So we were actually able to get all of the decommissioned water rescue equipment from the London Fire Department. The last couple of years, they've had a number of major hurricanes and damage to their infrastructure, and times that they would have been able to use that equipment and that training. So I'm very proud of that. Next was a disaster response to the Philippines. Typhoon Yolanda struck, and this was in 2014. I landed in Tacloban. This is about 3 weeks after the disaster. One of my first stops was to go to the local fire station, which had been decimated. They lost 6 of their 7 vehicles. The roof had been torn off of the fire station, which they are still operating out of. And they had 1 truck left, and they lost 5 guys. When I went into the chief's office and introduced myself, there was a whiteboard next to the desk, and it had a list of dates and numbers. And I asked him what it was. And what it was is a list of bodies that the firefighters had recovered to that point, because what they were doing on top of their job was cadaver recovery. And 3 weeks in, they were up to about 2,600. That was something else that we were helping out with there. A UN delegation there that would perform body identification, and then they would be placed into mass graves nearby. One of the other major things we were doing there was fresh water. And a lot of people don't realize that fresh water is one of the most important things to get going again after a major destruction of infrastructure, because that is the single easiest way for disease to spread. When people are thirsty, they'll drink anything.
Does anything prepare you for body recovery? I mean, is that the military? Is there training in the fire department? I mean, that must be really tough.
That's something that people have to find out for themselves. Seeing with and dealing with those type of things, whether it's here or abroad, my personal view is that person is not in that situation because of me. I feel good about it because I'm getting to do something. And that's how I deal with it.
And you're bringing some dignity to his or her situation.
I think that person would appreciate it, that I'm doing my best to help them, even if it's just covering up a body that had been left by the storm, and helps the local people. It certainly helps that person's family, but you do the best you can.
You're listening to composer and pianist Mary Lydia Ryan. She lives in the Seattle area. This song is called Bringer of Peace. It's from 2016 and it's on her solo piano album, Moving in Grace. So take me to Ukraine.
After the invasion in 2014 and the destabilization of major parts of the country, the city of Mariupol, which is in the southeast part of the country on the coast, strategically valuable because it's the center of their steel production. It had been shelled by the insurgents back in January with casualties of 1,000 casualties, 33 of them dead. One of the things that they noticed was a lot of the people and the casualties, it was caused by glass from windows. So people who were sheltering inside their homes, the concussive force of the explosives were causing these injuries. So a local company, 3M, they donated a few $1 million of this excellent product called blast film. It doesn't stop shrapnel or anything like that, but it will absorb the concussive force of an explosion and keep the glass from shattering. So they donated this film to be designated to be put on vulnerable occupancies, kindergartens, maternity wards, clinics, old folks' homes, that type of thing. But they didn't have anybody who wanted to volunteer to go to Ukraine. And that time, I think the front lines were about 5 kilometers away, 5-10 kilometers away. So you could hear the shelling. I saw it as an opportunity, so I went and I got the training, myself and a few others, and then we went over and were there for about 3 weeks.
3M is a big presence in London, Ontario.
It is, yes. It was terrific of them to donate this product, and I can't speak highly enough of it. My mission is always to do needs assessment for the local firefighters. Our support for Ukraine and its firefighters has equaled thousands of sets of bunker gear, which we've been able to get from here in London and from the city of Toronto. So it still continues on today.
So walk me through this, or drive me through this. You land in Mariupol, or you drive into Mariupol, and you have this film with you, and someone points to these buildings and storefronts and says, okay, there they are, go do it? Or if shelling is 5 kilometers away, how does this get done? What was the process?
At that time, the only way to get to Mariupol was by train. We landed in Kiev. We collected the equipment, which was shipped over, got it loaded onto trucks, and then we took a train from Kiev to Mariupol. Every city that we stopped in, I would make a point of going to their local fire service and introducing myself. We were always well received. I was very happy to continue that support when we came back to Canada.
Philippines, Vietnam, Nicaragua, Ukraine. Is there something about Ukraine that stays with you from that experience?
Ukraine was probably one of the most difficult for me because I was working so closely with a lot of local laborers. Many of them had fled their homes in the Donetsk or Luhansk regions and had lost everything. They lost their homes, they lost their businesses, and their country was torn apart. You're talking about 2.2 million Ukrainians displaced by the ongoing conflict. These guys that are working with me worked the whole time. They were extremely qualified laborers and very good at what they did, but they had nothing. But they wanted to help out still. They were very happy to help out, and I was touched by their national sense of pride. And I was also touched by how difficult it was for them to be suffering the war.
Can you just give me a sense of what's on the horizon for maybe another visit to Ukraine or another drop?
We had our most recent drop at the beginning of April. 40 sets of bunker gear went to firefighters. Some of it went to Kiev and some of it went to Slavutic. We have no plans to halt or slow down our support of the people of Ukraine and their firefighters. I actually am on my day off today, but I'm back on shift tomorrow. Looks like I'll be driving truck 7. Yes, station 7, yeah.
When you're driving and people on the street see a fire engine go by, they never imagine that driver has been to all these places.
I guess not. I'm a lucky guy.
Yes, and we are fortunate in this city to have you. Thank you for all the good work that you do.
You're very welcome.
Here's a tribute song for first responders everywhere. It's by Kevin Davison. Now, Kevin is a paramedic and a volunteer firefighter himself. He's from Kentville in Nova Scotia's Annapolis Valley. Contacted recently, we play this song with Kevin's permission.
It was a dark and stormy night, nor'easter rolling in. It's a long 12 hours, the power's out again. I pray for inner strength and that we don't lose no lives. Just another day in the first responders' eyes. Half a cup of coffee's gone, the first run comes in. A car slid off the road, there's a family trapped within. My heart beats like a hammer, I can barely catch my breath. I'm thinking the worst and hoping for the best. 'Cause we ain't superheroes, we're just ordinary people trying to make a difference, and the first on every scene. And it's a heavy, heavy burden to carry all this hurting when you can't unsee the things you've seen. It keeps going on. When those sirens are gone, it keeps going on. When those sirens are gone.
Can I have you a coffee or anything?
Just some water would be great. Having taken 2 streetcars from downtown Toronto, then walking on a sunny mid-April morning, I find myself in a commercial and industrial part of Etobicoke.
These are the main offices for both Global Fire and our sister charity, Global Medic. My name is Craig Lester. I'm the director of Global Fire. It's a Canadian-based charity that assists firefighters and paramedics in developing countries around the world. Back in 2009, there was a large earthquake in Haiti, in Port-au-Prince, and we had many people injured and trapped by debris, and we were looking for a way to perform technical rescues in order to extricate people from from that debris. And in North America, the people that do technical rescue are firefighters. And so we were looking for a way to get firefighters to join Global Medic. And so we decided to create a separate operational arm called Global Fire, and that would allow us to headhunt the already trained members. We would have approximately 1,000 volunteers registered. So I was born and raised in a small town east of the city, Wellington, Ontario. Grew up my high school years in the city of Barrie. I became a military member in the infantry. During training, sometimes you accidentally start fires, and they would ask for volunteers to put those fires out. I thought that was pretty interesting. So I went away to college for forest firefighting up in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, after having done that with the government, with the Ministry of Natural Resources. And so then I went away to college to become a firefighter and applied around Canada, and then was happily hired by the Toronto Fire Service in 1999. I'm an acting captain. The fire station I'm at now is in the Bloor and Sherbourne area, right in the heart of downtown Toronto. Row houses, there's parking garages, elevated, high-rise buildings, trains, also rivers in the area, and we have the lake down the south end of Toronto, so we see a diverse mix of calls in that area.
How did you become involved in the organization?
Yeah, so although fire departments support us, they do not host us. We are a standalone charity. It's important for our members to keep their professional lives separate from their lives within the charity. So I have been fortunate enough to travel, live, or work in over 80 countries, Ukraine being one of them.
Do you have a sense of the challenges that firefighters there specifically face, or fire departments? Is that a fair question to ask?
Yeah, I have been to the Ukraine. I have seen some of the challenges faced there, but also I've spoken to my team leads who have come back, and we have a report that the team leads go through, and they sort of fill out, and it describes the capabilities, it describes the limitations and challenges faced by local fire and emergency services. And so, things like water sources, building code issues, communications, accountability issues, command and control, financial resources to upkeep equipment, things of that nature. The amount of training and equipment that can be provided by charities such as ours, it would never be enough to solve a country's overarching sort of logistical training and sort of infrastructural issues, and that has to come from the government level.
How can people help?
So people can help by going to globalfire.ca. Our books are published online for everyone to see. All the money that is donated to Global Fire gets directly sent to our end user, our international programs. Also, if they would like to join the team, we will take anyone. You do not need to be a firefighter to join Global Fire. There's a million ways to help. Also, we'll take equipment. So basically anything that you think that an emergency service needs, whether that's the fire service, rescue agencies, emergency medical services, anything that you think that the men and women doing those tasks can use, they certainly can use it, and we'll make sure that it gets to them. And I appreciate your interest. Again, globalfire.ca, and we'd appreciate your support.
My name is Jamie Cross. I'm an emergency programs officer here with Global Medic. We respond to natural disasters and conflict situations around the world. We have our water programs, our shelter programs, our food programs, our medical programs, and our search and rescue programs. My undergraduate degree is in life sciences, so I was very interested in health and healthcare. And then I ended up doing my postgraduate degree in international development and program management, which is basically what I'm doing now. Through that program, I connected with Global Medic, and I volunteered with them a bit throughout the year as I was completing my postgrad degree. And then I applied for an internship here with them, which I got. And then after the internship, they took me on full time.
Sitting behind the computer or answering the phone, what was the biggest learning leap that you took having gotten here academically?
We work at a very rapid pace. There's things happening around the world all the time, and we're trying to get as much aid out as possible. A lot of our job revolves around logistics of getting things here, getting things out, getting things and people where they need to be at the right time. And sometimes that can be quite complicated, just depending on where it's going in the world. I didn't have any experience with that before, and you learn a little bit about it in school and in the program that I was doing, but diving right in, and as I say, the pace is so rapid, you're working on so many things at one time. So it's just an experiential kind of learning how to balance all of that stuff.
But where's the priority today? Where's that call coming from today?
Today it actually is Ukraine. There's a partner organization that we're working with that's based in Ukraine, and we are running an emergency food program. We developed the emergency food program here at Global Medic, and the whole concept behind it, there's many types of these different, dried packets of food that are ready to cook, ready to eat, whatever it is, and we just wanted to do it better. So our goal was always to create a solution for people that's culturally specific and culturally relevant to the the people that it's going to. So if you're in Syria or if you're a Syrian refugee who's been displaced and you're getting emergency food, it should be Syrian emergency food, something that you're familiar with and that you're going to want to eat. If you're in Indonesia and you're recovering from the earthquakes and tsunami that just happened, again, you should be getting Indonesian emergency food, so something that you want to eat. So we're running that in Ukraine right now. The slight difference with the program that's going in Ukraine is we're also turning it into an income generating project. So we're hiring IDP women who have been displaced from their homes to give them a source of income for the time that the project is running, so that they're going to be the ones assembling the meals. Here in Canada, when we assemble, it's by volunteers. We're going to, as I say, hire them there.
What does IDP stand for?
Internally displaced persons.
In developing specific foods for the needs and the tastes of a country, what did you learn about Ukraine?
Because we're working with a partner organization, as I said, they've done a lot of the grunt work on the ground, and I've been here, so I've been overseeing from Canada. I mean, the meal that they came up with is borscht, and I wasn't shocked that that's necessarily what they came up with, because it kind of fits the requirements. You can get everything dried and put it in that bag.
Borscht is either beets or cabbage or both, which are plentiful.
Similar to if you go to like a food bank here, you can get things that are like quick and easy to cook right away. You're not necessarily buying a bunch of fresh ingredients because those can be more expensive. It's just ready to go for you to use right away.
Is the emergency the displacement of people? What is the specific crisis that you're answering?
Yeah, so the food's going to be going more towards the east where people are being displaced or are in just more unstable kind of areas.
Now, are you going over yourself?
I'll be going just right before they start production, and then for that first little few days or week or so of production, just to make sure that everything's going off the ground smoothly. And then because I have experience with the emergency food program side, they're subject matter experts, obviously, on Ukraine and the context there and how to get things done there. And then I bring in the knowledge of our program as overall to help get it going and make sure that it goes smoothly.
Are there steps in place to make sure that this food gets to who it's supposed to get to?
There's always, in any type of distribution anywhere in the world, there's always, security risks and making sure that everything is set up properly. So that'll be steps that they'll have to take, but not something that I'm involved with.
It must be a tremendously restorative place to work. You come to work, you go home feeling good, I would think.
We're a smaller office in terms of our organization, but our output is pretty massive, I would say. So it's even great because you get to see, in my position, literally all of the aspects of running this agency from the very beginning to getting it out to the end beneficiary, which is a great experience, me as early in my career kind of getting started, but also really does emphasize like the importance of the work you're doing. So it's great, yeah. I've never been to Ukraine before, so that, as a side note, is kind of exciting because I'll get to go for the first time, but I'm happy that we're able to do something to kind of help people in some of the situations that they're in.
Заховай мене дим, я хотіла танцювати тільки з ним. Чому я вона, що лишилася одна, танцювати одна? Не люблю тебе дим, я хотіла танцювати тільки з ним. Чому в голові туман, кохання як дим, солодкий дурман.
Nasha Kasha is also a podcast. Subscribe for free wherever you find your podcasts. Partial funding for Nasha Kasha is provided by the Canadian Foundation of Taras Shevchenko and the Ukrainian Credit Union. Back in a week, God willing, до милої зустрічі за тиждень часу, дорогі слухачі.